Hi, welcome back to the Mikey Z TV podcast. I'm Mikey Z, and welcome to episode 4. This is a solo episode that I'm basically taking on myself because I wanted to take the opportunity to kind of poke fun about me. Basically, who the fuck am I to start a podcast, and who am I to interview people about creative endeavors that they've taken on themselves? And frankly, the way I feel about it is, I'm a lot of a behind the scenes guy with a little bit of stuff that's poked into the world. So I am a musician. I've been writing music, recording music since I was 7 years old. That process has been ongoing for as long as I remember. And I'm just starting to get back into the swing of things. I was working with a producer who has since moved to a different state. So that has basically ceased to continue. But writing new things, going back into the book and looking at, what I can take from old material and record and get onto an album to put out to the world. And at this point, I don't even really care about having that music out there for sale, even though I'd love to make music a main profession of mine. The concept for me is that I've been doing it so long, and I feel honestly ashamed at this point that I haven't had anything out into the world for people to say like, oh yeah, he's a musician, right? Because I can say it to you all day, but until you see, or hear me play, I'm just another guy in that regard too. So in capacity of music, I am a musician. I have been writing and recording since I was 7. And so the podcast is going to be a platform in that regard for me to be able to have other musicians and other, band members, bands, other folks to come on in a music capacity and talk to them as far as what they do and how they've done it and what's worked and what hasn't worked. And more or less even kind of using them as a resource to finally get my stuff done. Right. So that's music. I'm also a graphic and pen and paper kind of artist. I've been doing graphic design and prints for a couple different clothing companies throughout the years, and those have been very one-off things and nothing that I can write home about that was successful enough for me to say like this was something that really worked for me as well. But in my back pocket, I've always had this element of creativity that I really want to share with the world, and I want to push past a certain point as well. So just like music, it's kind of been something that I feel like music and this clothing, t-shirt, branding kind of company of my own has just been on a treadmill for too long. So I'm ready to really push that forward, and I want to try and make some big strides within this year. I'm 33 years old. I started this podcast on my 33rd birthday. So everything kind of coming together, it's very important for me to really like push this forward and really make some things happen. These are my spinning plates. I just really have a lot going on, and I'm excited about a lot. I'd honestly tell you at this point, it's the capital, it's the business behind the business that is really what is taking the time now. But the organization coming from my side has never been clearer. And I'm very happy to say that I'm making more movements since I've turned 33 than I feel like I've done in the past 32 years. There are growing pains. There is definitely life stress. There is definitely, health obstacles. Just recently, I cut the back of my hand, so my thumb to play with has been weaker than normal. That's going to get better, I'm sure. But that was just a little hiccup as well that, I was like concerned about playing sets for a minute. On top of all of that, I run a social marketing firm. So I take on clients all the time that sign up on a contract with me. And we basically produce chunks of content that they can use throughout the year. Or if they get on like a month-to-month basis, we're creating content specifically for those months and planning out ahead. So I am accepting, more social media clients as we speak. and super stoked to have that as another thing that I do. That's heavier on the photo and the video side. I don't do a lot of graphics for those clients in most cases, but what I do is take graphics that you have and turn those graphics into reusable components for like video intros, After Effects templates, essentially, of logo reveals and things like that. So you have these elements that I create and you can reuse them for business. Again, these are just all things that I've really had like focus on. The social media side has been a primary thing that I'm doing for others. I need to even step it up for myself, which is a big push of why I started the podcast. Big push in making myself be more active with posts, with stories on Instagram, with, all the different things. But until I have like an album to push, until I have a single out to push, until I have the clothing company rocking, which currently I'm reaching out to people to essentially either represent or even talk about getting involved, and seeing what strengths other people can bring to the table. So it's a really exciting time right now, and I'm super pumped to kind of update everybody with this. In other notes, clients that I work with, I've done some updates to the website, my website, mikeyz.com. Go there for all show notes and all sorts of additional links that get mentioned in episodes. There's the actual podcast page that's broken down by episode, as well as just all other things. So there's a music page now, and I added in the About page, which kind of talks a little bit more about the branding efforts that I do. If you are interested in coming on the podcast or have a story to tell, my promise in the podcast format is that I get a little bit looser. If you know me on a personal side, not from like a social media standpoint or anything like that, like if you're a homie of mine, you know that I'm kind of a goofball and I'm funny and I have a lot of quirky things that I say and do that are not showing in the current episodes. So I really want to push to just loosen up in my own ways and start to do different segments and do different kind of games with people on the podcast to help myself loosen up, but to make it a very fun, thing for people to want to come on and do the podcast as well. So, be looking forward to like hearing the other segments, hearing the other things that I'm going to start doing with people in the studio. And then the other side of it is too, I'm going to start doing more episodes where it might be this single angle and then either have Zoom calls starting, have a laptop set up on this station and be able to take, basically calls. So not all guests will be in studio, but I'll start bringing in people that I find fascinating. And this is just one more thing to say, like, you don't have to be local to jump on the podcast. If you're in a different state or you're in a different, country for that matter, a Zoom call or, even just a phone call. So we can throw a picture of yourself up on the screen while you're talking or anything like that. I can do the edit that way. No problem. So, reach out to me. It does not matter where you are. You don't have to be local to Gilbert, which is where I'm based out of now. But with my fiance finishing up nursing school, which I'm so proud, she's in the home stretch. She graduates at the end of May. She's going to be based out of the Valley for a little while, but I think that that's definitely one of the goals is to try and be a traveling nurse for her. And with everything that I'm trying to do from a social side and help myself build my brands to where I'm able to kind of travel and do what I want to do. And I'm not tied to a certain region or state or anything like that as well. That's the goal. That's where I'm at. So there's a little bit more work in the studio space. My home office is where I record all this stuff. There's still a little bit of sound treating that I'd like to do to this room. So, in further episodes down the road, I'll probably have some of that completed where on these back walls, I'm going to try and have some sort of sound proofing happening here. I might get some panels to just wrap this back corner and maybe above the front doors there. But that's just really to help with like the quality of the sound that you get from the podcast. Maybe some microphone upgrades, maybe, little things here and there. But for the most part, the format is here. And I have every means to do everything that I want to do. So I'm really excited and I'm super pumped to share all this stuff with you. And I hope this wasn't too much of a rambling, but I wanted to take the time to basically just poke fun at myself and say, I'm a guy who's just trying to really make myself into what I want to be. And, that's the biggest thing that I feel like is, that pulls on my heartstrings is if you don't go after what you want, if you aren't trying to, to be cheesy, I always loved the line from A Knight's Tale, Heath Ledger, rest in peace. But he basically says the line of like, changing his stars. And that's the main thing for me is like, nobody is going to give you the path that you dream of. You have to take the ball and run with it and really make your own future and your own design pathway. So this is me just giving you guys a little bit more of like a in-depth thing. I feel like I'm going to start doing these more because there's a lot of things that I have that I think would be cool to just share with you guys and talk about and almost use as my form of therapy with you guys. I'm going to tell you what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And hopefully that helps other people that are looking at doing similar things to what I'm doing here now. In terms of podcast and studio builds and, what I've found and what I've invested in and what I've thought was unnecessary and what I find is a great value that would give you the same effect for less money and all the different ins and outs, right? The tricks and stuff. That's what I want to share. I want to help everybody do what they want to do. Through ZenDev, which is the partnership I have with the gentleman Dan Conzen, zendevco.com. We're doing a redesign on that website for him as well. But the concept is they have kind of walk through if you're a startup, the established business or a nonprofit, for example, there are ways to kind of walk through an incubator setup where they give you a couple of models. It's like you can do it yourself or we can do it for you type of mentality. And you have both options to play with. And then there's zendev.university coming up, which those courses aren't live yet. But I've really kind of thought about doing the podcast studio as a course. So if you're interested in really learning how step by step I set up a multicam, live switching, audio direct into that setup, preview for someone to be controlling that, to be doing share screens, to be doing secondary, commentary or anything, and having, 4 to 6 mics in that setup and have everybody sound great, hear themselves, all that kind of good stuff. That might be one of the courses that I put out there. If that's something that you're interested in hearing or learning about, let me know in the comments on YouTube. Let me know in, DM me on Instagram, wherever you want to contact me. Let me know that you would be interested in learning everything that I've learned. Those courses could get made and could be an option for you guys. So if you're a business and want to have basically like a little home studio like what I've built for myself and for clients to use when they work with me, let me know. I'm happy to educate in that same way too. So on that note, I really appreciate you guys tuning in to episode 4 of the Mikey Z TV podcast. I'm Mikey Z. More about me at mikeyz.com. And for anything else that you guys are thinking you want to ask me or whatever, there's the contact page on the website. Or again, just slide into the DMs. I'm happy to answer questions or forward those questions into the next episode. So thank you again for watching, and we will see you in the next one.